Greetings, Nimrods. So this is segment 3 of our Nimrods Reloading 101 series. And today we're going to start talking about components, specifically the first component, which is your hull, or your empty shell, or what you want to call it. Specifically, we're just going to talk about 12 gauge hulls, and the ones that I choose to use. Again, we're not going to depth at every kind of hull possible, but just the ones that I like to use for my target loads, and that would be the Remington Gun Club, which is the same thing as an STS, Premier. I think they have a couple different names, but it's basically it's a one-piece hull with the tapered plastic on the inside. We'll show you some cutaways. But we like to use these because there's lots of them around here. People use them a lot. They're cheap. They seem to hold up pretty well. You get I don't know. I don't really count how many reloads I do, but I would guess that this one here has probably got 5 or 6 in it. And I usually lose them or throw them out before they're really terrible and not reloadable. Of course, I resize my hulls before I run them through the press, just cause, for a couple reasons actually. One reason is if you pick these things up and the primers are in them and there's any kind of moisture in it, the primer can corrode a little bit, and then when you go to punch out the primer, it'll actually it might push the back of the back of the brass out a little bit, or in this case the steel out a little bit, which makes it hard to reload. They'll jam up inside the plate there because there'll be a little bit of a bulge there. So to avoid that, I just resize them and deprime them pretty much right after I shoot them, and that kind of avoids that problem. You don't want to have that kind of problem when you're running it through a progressive reloader, because you'll have this thing loaded up with in every stage of the cycle there, and you'll have one of these things go in there and start dragging and slowing it down, and then you got to stop and break everything down, and it's just a mess. So avoid that. Just deprime them and resize them as a separate action, and you'll save yourself a headache. Also, you'll every so often you'll snag the edge of the brass on the resizing die and wreck it. And it's better to, again, not put that in the process. So when you feel a hang up there, and take a good look at it and make sure you didn't booger one up. So again, the Remington STS is what I use for most of my reloads, and then the other one would be, of course, the Winchester AA. I don't think these last as long as the Remington ones. They're certainly good, and they have real brass heads on them as opposed to the steel heads, which I guess makes them resize more easily. I don't know that that's really the case. Makes them a little harder to pick up with a magnet because you have to get the steel primer to catch onto the magnet. I think they wear out a little bit sooner. And then when we cut this in half, we'll show you what the inside of these newer ones, they're a two-piece design, and I suspect that they will not last as long as these because of that, and we'll take a look at that when we cut them in half. So there you go, the two hulls I like to use for my reloads, for my target reloads. We can get into other ones in a different video series, but this is Nimrods 101, Reloading 101, so we're just talking about basic target loads here and what I do, because there's a million hulls and there's a million options out there, but these are the ones that are most readily available. The Gun Club ones with the steel heads are very common. Guys use them and they throw them out, and Yankees like me pick them up and reuse them. I haven't bought a 12 gauge target load in probably 8 years. It just don't need to. There's so many of these things laying around at the range. These are a little harder to come by. They're a premium price for a AA hull. You can get these for $5 or $6 a box. If you're buying cases, and these, you know, they $8 or $10 a box. So you don't see these as much, and they tend to hold on to them longer. So there you go, the two hulls that we use for our target loads. Maybe next time we'll talk about primers. Happy hunting, Nimrods. Hey, you're still watching. That's great. So if you made it this far, please consider sharing this with your Nimrod friends and liking it if you like this video. And if you didn't like this video and you didn't like this extra footage of me cutting these holes in half, well, then give it a big old thumbs down. But we hope you give it a thumbs up. And subscribe. Just remember, Nimrod wants you to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Happy hunting, Nimrods.